The asteroid belt around Kepler 90 held enough rare metals to make Dave Rodriguez and his crew wealthy beyond their wildest dreams. Their mining ship, Terra's Pride, was small but efficient. It had been 3 months since they last saw another human vessel in this remote corner of space. Dave preferred it that way. No corporate oversight, no military patrols asking questions about mining permits, just him and his 5-person crew pulling platinum and rhodium from floating rocks. The Cree. Alarm started screaming at 0800 ship time. Dave was drinking his morning coffee in the mess hall when the lights turned red and the emergency klaxon made everyone jump. Tom, his engineer, came running from the engine room with grease on his hands and panic in his eyes. "Boss, you need to see this," Tom said, pointing toward the bridge. "Long-range sensors are going crazy." Dave followed Tom to the bridge where Dr. Liu was already staring at the main screen. The sensor display showed 3 massive objects approaching from hyperspace. They were big, much bigger than anything humans had ever built. As the objects dropped out of faster-than-light travel, their true size became clear. Each ship was over, 2 miles long, dark metal covered in weapon ports and armor plating. "Well, that's not good," Dave said, setting down his coffee mug. The lead ship was different from the others. It had spikes and decorative elements that served no practical purpose. Bright red lights pulsed along its hull in patterns that seemed designed to look threatening. When it opened communication channels, the voice that came through was deep and filled with authority. "Primitive humans," the voice boomed through their speakers. "You will surrender immediately. Resistance is futile. You now serve the Dominion fleet of Warlord Thaxos, conqueror of 17 systems, bringer of order to the galaxy." Dave looked at his crew. They were scared, which was reasonable. Their mining ship had cutting lasers and basic shields, nothing that could threaten a military vessel. Tom was already running calculations on his tablet, probably trying to find an escape route. Dr. Liu was backing up her research data, preparing for the worst. "Should we run?" asked Amy, their pilot. She was young, maybe 25, and this was her first time in deep space. Dave considered it. Their ship was fast for a miner, but those alien dreadnoughts could probably catch them before they reached hyperspace. Fighting was obviously out of the question. That left surrender, which Dave had never been good at. "Open a channel," he told Amy. The screen flickered and showed the interior of the alien ship. It was exactly what Dave expected from someone who called himself a warlord. Everything was black metal and red lights. Alien soldiers in spike-covered armor stood at attention. And on a throne that looked like it was made from the bones of defeated enemies sat Thaxos himself. The alien was 12 feet tall with dark scales covering his body. His eyes glowed amber in the dim light of his throne room. He wore a crown made of twisted metal and gems that probably came from conquered worlds. When he spoke, his voice echoed off the chamber walls. "Humans," Thaxos said, "you will come aboard. My flagship immediately. Your vessel and its cargo now belong to the Dominion. You will serve as slaves until your deaths, which will come when I decide you are no longer useful." Dave stared at the screen for a moment. He looked at the dramatic throne, the unnecessary spikes, the over-the-top lighting effects. The alien soldiers were standing so still they looked like statues. Everything about the scene was designed to inspire fear and submission. Instead, Dave started laughing. It began as a small chuckle, but quickly grew into full-belly laughter. Dave laughed so hard he had to hold on to the control console to keep from falling over. Tears started running down his face as he gasped for breath between fits of giggling. The throne room went completely silent. Thaxos leaned forward on his bone throne, amber eyes narrowing. His soldiers shifted uncomfortably, unsure how to react to this response. "You dare mock the mighty Thaxos?" the warlord demanded. Dave wiped tears from his eyes and tried to catch his breath. "I'm sorry," he said, still chuckling. "It's just, wow. Did you guys get your whole aesthetic from human comic books? The spiky armor, the evil throne, the dramatic lighting. You even called yourself a warlord. I mean, what's next? Are you going to tell me about your plans to destroy the rebellion? Tom was staring at Dave like he had lost his mind. Dr. Liu was making frantic hand gestures, trying to get him to stop talking. Amy had gone pale and was gripping the pilot controls so hard her knuckles were white. Thaxos stood up from his throne, all 12 feet of him rising like a tower of scaled fury. "Silence, primitive! You will learn respect when you feel the bite of my blade." "Oh, come on," Dave said, grinning. "The bite of your blade? Did you rehearse these lines? Please tell me you have a cape somewhere, maybe a mustache you can twirl," while explaining your evil plan. The alien soldiers in the throne room were looking at each other now. Some seemed confused, others appeared to be fighting back their own amusement. One soldier in the back shifted his weight from foot to foot, breaking the statue-like formation. Thaxos was turning a darker shade of green, which Dave assumed meant he was getting angry. "You will be brought to my ship immediately," the warlord snarled. "I will personally teach you the meaning of fear." "Looking forward to it," Dave replied. "This should be interesting." The communication channel cut off, leaving Dave's crew staring at him in shock. Outside their ship, tractor beams locked onto their hull and began pulling them toward the alien flagship. "Boss," Tom said quietly. "What the hell was that?" Dave sat down in his command chair and picked up his coffee mug. The liquid was still warm. "Well," he said, taking a sip, "I figured if we're going to die, we might as well die laughing. Besides, did you see how angry he got? I don't think anyone has ever made fun of him before." Dr. Liu was shaking her head. "Dave, you just insulted a warlord who controls 17 star systems." "Yeah," Dave replied, watching through the view screen as their ship was drawn into the massive alien vessel. "And he looked absolutely ridiculous doing it. That's got to count for something." The last thing Dave saw before the alien ship's hangar bay doors closed around them was Tom putting his head in his hands and muttering something about humans being the stupidest species in the galaxy. Dave couldn't argue with that assessment, but he was still smiling when the armed aliens came to collect them. 3 days in an alien prison cell gave Dave plenty of time to think about his life choices. The cell was designed for intimidation, with walls that pulsed with red energy and a floor that hummed with some kind of power field. His crew was locked in nearby cells, and he could hear Tom cursing about their situation every few hours. The guards were 8-foot-tall creatures with too many arms and faces that looked like they had been carved from stone. They fed the prisoners something that tasted like wet cardboard but kept them alive. Dave had tried talking to the guards, but they only spoke in grunts and pointing gestures. On the morning of the 4th day, the guards came for them. Dave and his crew were marched through corridors lined with weapon displays and battle trophies. Everything on the ship seemed designed to remind prisoners that they were dealing with conquerors. Banners hung from the ceiling showing the symbols of defeated worlds. Glass cases held the preserved heads of enemy leaders. "Subtle," Dave muttered as they walked past a display showing the destruction of some alien city. The guards pushed them into a transport shuttle that smelled like a combination of fuel and fear. Through the small windows, Dave could see they were leaving the flagship and heading toward a planet below. The world was mostly green and blue, with large cities scattered across the continents. It looked peaceful, which probably meant it had been conquered recently. Amy, who was sitting across from Dave in the shuttle, looked sick. "Where are they taking us?" she whispered. "Probably somewhere unpleasant," Dave replied. He had been thinking about their situation and had come to some conclusions. Thaxos was clearly the type who liked to make examples of people who defied him. A quick death would have been too easy. The warlord wanted Dave to suffer publicly, which meant they were probably heading for some kind of arena. The shuttle landed at a complex that confirmed Dave's suspicions. It was a massive coliseum, surrounded by smaller buildings that looked like barracks and training facilities. Alien spectators were already filling the seats, eager to watch whatever entertainment was planned. As they were marched through the arena complex, Dave continued his commentary. "Nice place you got here," he told the guards. "Very Roman Empire. Meets alien death cult. I bet the gift shop sells tiny gladiator helmets." One of the guards growled at him, but Dave noticed that another guard seemed to be listening carefully to his words. Maybe some of them understood more human language than they let on. The holding cells beneath the arena were crowded with other prisoners. Dave's crew was separated and placed in different cells, but they were close enough to talk to each other. More importantly, they were close enough to talk to the other prisoners. In the cell next to Dave was a creature that looked like a cross between a mantis and a professor. It had 4 arms, compound eyes, and was wearing what appeared to be the remains of a business suit. When it spoke, its voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "You are the human who insulted Thaxos," the creature said. It was a statement, not a question. "Guilty as charged," Dave replied. "What gave it away?" Word travels fast in the cells. "I am Kryn, former trade representative of the Hive Federation. We were a peaceful alliance of merchant worlds until Thaxos decided our shipping routes belonged to him." "Sorry about that," Dave said. "I'm Dave. What's the situation here?" Kryn's insect-like head tilted to one side. "We fight in the arena for Thaxos' entertainment. Most of us die. The survivors fight again until they die. It has been this way for 2 years since the conquest." "Cheerful," Dave said. "What about escape?" "Impossible. The arena is surrounded by energy fields. The planet is guarded by the fleet. Even if someone could escape the complex, there is nowhere to go." In another cell, Dave could see Dr. Liu talking to what appeared to be a living crystal formation. The crystal was pulsing with internal light, and Liu was taking notes on a piece of paper she had somehow obtained. Tom was arguing with something that looked like a large, angry mushroom, while Amy was trying to comfort what might have been a small dragon. "How many species has Thaxos conquered?" Dave asked Kryn. 17, as he constantly reminds us. "But there are rumors of rebellion on some worlds. The broadcasts of your first encounter have been spreading through the underground networks." Dave was surprised. "Broadcasts?" "The Dominion records all first contacts for propaganda purposes. Your laughter has been seen by millions across the Empire. Many are saying that if a primitive human can mock the great Thaxos and live, perhaps he is not as powerful as he claims." This was interesting news. Dave had just been trying to deal with a bad situation by keeping his sense of humor. He had not considered that his reaction might have broader consequences. A new group of guards arrived, and Dave recognized them as the same ones who had brought him from the ship. The lead guard pointed at Dave and barked something in the alien language. The other prisoners in nearby cells started making noise, some cheering, others making what sounded like warning calls. "What's happening?" Dave asked Kryn. "They are taking you to meet Thaxos again. He wants to speak with you before the games begin." Dave was escorted through more intimidating corridors filled with weapons and trophies. This time, they brought him to a smaller chamber that was still decorated with the same over-the-top evil aesthetic. Thaxos was waiting for him, standing, instead of sitting on his throne. The Warlord had added more spikes to his armor since their last meeting. "Human," Thaxos said, his voice echoing in the chamber. "You will fight in my arena tomorrow. You will die slowly and in great pain, so that all who watch will understand the price of defying the Dominion." Dave looked around the room. There were more unnecessary decorations, more dramatic lighting effects, and what appeared to be a collection of skulls arranged in artistic patterns. "Can I ask you something?" Dave said. "Do you actually enjoy all this theatrical stuff, or is it just part of the job? Because I have to say, it seems like a lot of work. All the spike polishing, the dramatic lighting setup, making sure the skulls are arranged just right." Thaxos's amber eyes narrowed. "Mock me all you wish, human. Tomorrow you will learn that fear is the only appropriate response to power." "See, that's the thing," Dave replied. "Fear is temporary. but ridiculous is forever. And honestly, this whole setup is pretty ridiculous. I mean, you've got 17 star systems and unlimited resources, and you spend your time arranging skulls and practicing dramatic speeches. Don't you have hobbies? The Warlord took a step closer, and Dave could smell something like sulfur and burned metal on his breath. You will beg for mercy before the end. Probably, Dave agreed, but right now, I'm mostly curious about whether you have a cape. Please tell me you have a cape somewhere. The look really isn't complete without a cape. Thaxos roared and raised one clawed hand as if to strike Dave down. Then he stopped, lowered his hand, and smiled, showing teeth like broken glass. No, human. Your death will be public and educational. Guards, return this fool to his cell. Tomorrow the galaxy will watch him die. As Dave was led away, he called back over his shoulder. Don't forget the cape, Thaxos. It would really bring the whole look together. The guards pushed Dave back toward the holding cells, but he noticed that some of them were making sounds that might have been suppressed laughter. Even more interesting, he could hear excited chatter from the other prisoners, as word spread about what had happened. When he was back in his cell, Kryn was waiting with what Dave assumed was an expression of amazement. You insulted him again, the insect creature said. Yeah, Dave replied. Still seems ridiculous to me. I mean, all that power and he spends his time playing dress-up and making threats. It's like he's afraid that if he doesn't look scary enough, people might notice he's just another bully. Perhaps, Kryn said thoughtfully, that is exactly what he fears. The morning of the arena matches brought visitors to the holding cells. Dr. Liu had spent the night talking with the crystal being, whose name turned out to be Vel. Amy had befriended the small dragon creature, which was actually a young member of a peaceful farming species. Tom had discovered that the angry mushroom was a brilliant engineer whose people built living ships from organic materials. But it was Liu who had made the most important discovery. Dave, she called from her cell, excitement clear in her voice. You need to see this. Liu was holding something that looked like ordinary dirt, but as Dave watched, it began to glow with a soft blue light. The dirt seemed to be moving on its own, flowing like liquid while maintaining the appearance of soil. What is it? Dave asked. Native fungi, Liu explained. The dragon creature, his name is Pip, showed me where they grow in the arena floor. These organisms are incredible. They can manipulate quantum fields at the molecular level. In basic human language, please, Dave said. Tom had moved closer to listen from his cell. She means they mess with the fundamental forces that hold matter. Together. It's like they can convince atoms to behave differently. Liu nodded. The fungi evolved this ability to protect themselves from quantum storms that happen on this planet. But Dave, with the right cultivation and preparation, these could interfere with the Dominion's technology. Their ships, their weapons, everything they build depends on quantum field stabilization. Dave looked at the glowing dirt in Liu's hands. You're telling me that mushrooms could bring down an interstellar empire? Not mushrooms exactly, but yes. The principle is sound. The problem is that we would need time to cultivate enough of them, and we would need a way to distribute them throughout their fleet. Vel, the crystal being, pulsed with brighter light. When he spoke, his voice sounded like distant music. I am what your species might call an energy creature. My people exist partially outside normal space. I could carry the fungal spores through quantum barriers, but I would need a distraction to avoid detection. Dave was starting to see possibilities, but they were interrupted by the arrival of the guards. Today was different. Instead of the usual stone-faced creatures, they were accompanied by smaller aliens who carried cameras and recording equipment. Great, Dave muttered. They're going to film this. Kryn, who had become Dave's unofficial advisor on Dominion culture, explained while they were being prepared for the arena. Thaxos broadcasts the games across the Empire. It is part of his control strategy. People watch their enemies die and lose hope of resistance. The prisoners were given basic weapons and armor that looked like it had been designed more for show than protection. Dave received a sword that was probably supposed to look primitive and crude, emphasizing the superiority of Dominion technology. In reality, it was well-balanced and sharp enough to be dangerous. "Listen," Dave told his crew as they were lined up for the march to the arena floor. "Whatever happens out there, remember that we're being watched. This isn't just about us anymore. Those broadcasts that Kryn mentioned, they're going to every conquered world. People who have lost hope are going to be watching." Amy, who looked terrified but determined, nodded. "What do you want us to do?" "Follow my lead," Dave said. "And remember that sometimes the best weapon against a tyrant is making him look stupid." The arena was even more impressive from ground level. It could hold maybe 50,000 spectators, and every seat was filled. The crowd was a mix of different alien species, some cheering for blood, others sitting in sullen silence. Above the arena, on a platform decorated with enough weapons to arm a small moon, sat Thaxos on a mobile version of his bone throne. The Warlord's voice boomed across the arena through hidden speakers. "Citizens of the Dominion, today you will witness the fate of those who dare defy our order. These primitive humans thought they could mock the power of Thaxos. Watch as they learn the price of insolence." The crowd cheered, but Dave noticed it was not unanimous. Some sections of the audience remained quiet, and he could see camera drones flying overhead to record every moment. The first challenge was a group of mechanical warriors, robots designed to look like ancient Dominion soldiers. They moved in, perfect formation, and attacked with coordinated precision. Dave's crew worked together, using their human adaptability to outmaneuver the predictable machines. But Dave had realized that fighting effectively was only part of the challenge. As he dodged a robot's blade and struck back with his sword, he called out loud enough for the arena microphones to pick up his voice. "Nice robots, Thaxos! Very shiny! Did they come with an instruction manual, or do you just wind them up and let them go?" The crowd murmured at this unexpected commentary. Prisoners were supposed to fight desperately for their lives, not make jokes about their executioners. When the mechanical warriors were defeated, the arena floor opened to release. A pack of creatures that looked like lions crossed with sharks. They had fins instead of manes and rows of teeth that glowed with their own light. "Oh, fantastic!" Dave shouted as the creatures circled them. "Glow-in-the-dark shark lions? Let me guess, they're from the planet of unnecessarily dangerous animals? Did you breed them specifically to look scary, or was that just a happy accident?" Tom, who was standing back-to-back with Amy, actually started laughing despite the danger. "Boss, are you seriously giving a comedy routine while fighting space monsters?" "Why not?" Dave replied, striking down one of the creatures with a move that was more lucky than skillful. "If we're going to die, we might as well make it entertaining." Dr. Liu, who was using her scientific knowledge to predict the creature's attack patterns, added her own commentary. "From an evolutionary standpoint, these modifications make no sense. The bioluminescence would make them terrible hunters in the wild." The audience was beginning to react differently now. Some were laughing at the absurdity of prisoners critiquing their execution method. Others were cheering for the humans who refused to act like proper victims. Above the arena, Dave could see Thaxos gripping the arms of his throne so hard that his claws were leaving marks in the bone. The Warlord had expected terror and begging. Instead, he was getting a comedy show that made his carefully designed spectacle look ridiculous. When the last shark lion fell, Dave looked up at the cameras and waved. "That was fun! What's next? A robot dragon? Please tell me you have a robot dragon. That would really complete the whole comic book villain theme you've got going." The arena floor shook and massive doors opened at the far end. What emerged was not a robot dragon, but something worse. It was a creature from Thaxos' home world, a predator that stood 20 feet tall and had enough natural weapons to destroy a tank. But Dave was committed to his strategy now. As the monster charged toward them, he turned to the cameras again. Okay, that's actually pretty impressive. But seriously, Thaxos, where do you find these things? Is there a catalog? Evil Overlords Monthly? Do they deliver, or do you have to pick them up yourself? The creature reached them, and the real fight began. This was not a performance anymore. The monster was fast, smart, and designed by millions of years of evolution to kill efficiently. Dave's crew fought with desperate skill, using everything they had learned in their years of working dangerous jobs in space. But even as they fought for their lives, Dave kept up his commentary. Every time he dodged a claw or avoided a bite, he made another observation about the absurdity of their situation. The audience was now completely engaged, some cheering for the humans, others booing their unconventional approach to mortal combat. When the creature finally fell, brought down by Tom's engineering skills and a trap made from arena debris, the crowd erupted. Some were cheering for the victory, others were angry that the show had not gone as planned. Dave, breathing hard and covered in alien monster blood, looked up at Thaxos. The Warlord was standing now, his amber eyes blazing with fury. "Enjoying the show?" Dave called up to him. "Because from down here, it looks like your whole intimidation thing isn't working as well as you thought it would." Thaxos roared something in his native language that probably included several words that would not be appropriate for family viewing. The broadcast suddenly cut to commercial, but not before millions of viewers across the Empire had seen their mighty warlord lose his composure because a human had made fun of his pet monster. As the guards came to escort them back to the cells, Dave realized that Lou's fungal discovery and Vel's abilities were just part of what they needed. The real weapon against Thaxos was not superior technology or military might. It was the simple human ability to find humor in the darkest situations, and refuse to be intimidated by bullies no matter how big they were or how many planets they had conquered. The arena victory had changed everything. Word of Dave's performance spread through the prison complex faster than a computer virus. Guards who had maintained professional silence now whispered to each other in corners. Kitchen staff bringing food to the cells moved more slowly, listening to conversations. Even the stone-faced executioner robots seemed to pause an extra second before responding to commands. More importantly, new prisoners arrived daily, and they brought news from across the Empire. Kryn translated what he could overhear from the guards' conversations, and the information was encouraging. On the mining world of Pharaoh 7, workers had started telling jokes about their Dominion overseers. The ocean planet Aquatica had seen its first protest in 3 years, with citizens demanding to know why their supposedly invincible rulers were afraid of human comedy routines. "The broadcasts are having an effect," Vel explained during one of their planning sessions. The crystal being could communicate through quantum fields, picking up transmissions from across the galaxy. 17 worlds are watching recordings of your arena matches. Many are asking questions they have not dared ask in years. Dave was pleased but worried. "That's great, but Thaxos isn't going to let this continue much longer. He's going to do something dramatic to reassert his authority." Dr. Liu had spent every free moment working with the quantum fungi. She had cultivated several different strains, each with specific properties. "I have enough spores now to affect the quantum stabilizers on a single large ship. But to hit the entire fleet, we would need a delivery system that could spread them simultaneously across multiple vessels." Tom had been studying the arena's infrastructure, using his engineer's knowledge to map the facility's systems. The arena has a central air recycling system that connects to the orbital platform where Thaxos keeps his command ship docked. If we could get the spores into that system during a major event, they could spread to every ship in the fleet. "What kind of major event?" Amy asked. She had become the group's intelligence gatherer, befriending prisoners from different species and learning about Dominion customs and traditions. Kryn's insect-like features shifted in what Dave had learned was the equivalent of a grim smile. "The Grand Tournament. It happens once every 5 years when Thaxos brings his entire fleet to demonstrate Dominion power. All 17 conquered worlds send representatives to watch. It is the ultimate display of his authority. When is the next one? Dave asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. In 3 days, Kryn replied. Thaxos moved the date forward. He wants to use the tournament to erase the embarrassment you have caused him. Dave looked around at his unlikely group of allies. They had a crystal being who could move through quantum space, a scientist who understood alien biotechnology, an engineer who could build devices from spare parts, and a collection of prisoners from different species who all had reasons to hate the Dominion. All right, Dave said. Here's what we're going to do. The plan they developed was complicated, dangerous, and relied heavily on Thaxos's psychology. Dave had spent enough time observing the Warlord to understand his weaknesses. The alien was powerful, ruthless, and intelligent, but he was also vain, prideful, and obsessed with maintaining his image of invincibility. He's going to want to face me personally, Dave explained. After all the public humiliation, killing me through surrogates won't be enough. He needs to prove that he can defeat the human who made him look foolish. Tom was working on a device that could amplify Liu's fungal spores and distribute them through the arena's air system. The device was crude, built from salvaged arena equipment, and hidden components from various alien technologies, but it should work once. The timing has to be perfect, Tom said, showing them the makeshift device. We get one shot at this. Once the spores are released, the Dominion will adapt their technology to counter them. This is a one-time weapon. Liu had prepared several different types of spores, each designed for a specific purpose. The primary strain will interfere with quantum field stabilizers. Their ships will lose power and become unable to maintain structural integrity. The secondary strain targets their communication systems. They will be unable to coordinate a response. Vel had been practicing moving through the station's quantum barriers without detection. I can reach the main communication array during the confusion. From there, I can broadcast a signal to every world in the Empire simultaneously. Amy had been studying the guard rotations and security protocols. The best time to act will be during the championship match. All attention will be focused on the arena floor, and the security systems will be configured for crowd control rather than prisoner containment. Dave nodded. And I'll make sure Thaxos is too angry to think clearly. If I can get him emotional enough, he'll make mistakes. The night before the grand tournament, Dave lay in his cell thinking about home. Earth was thousands of light years away, and his chances of ever seeing it again were small. But that was not what bothered him. What worried him was the possibility that his plan might fail and leave the 17 conquered worlds worse off than before. Kryn, who seemed to sense his mood, spoke quietly from the next cell. You are thinking of failure. Yeah, Dave admitted. What if this doesn't work? What if I just make things worse for everyone? You have already made things better, Kryn said. Before you arrived, we had no hope. We fought in the arena because we had no choice, and we died because that was our fate. You showed us that even the mighty Thaxos can be made to look foolish. Hope is a powerful weapon. Hope doesn't stop plasma cannons, Dave replied. Perhaps not, but hopeless people do not fight back, and across 17 worlds, people are fighting back because of what you did in this arena, the morning of the grand tournament arrived with fanfare that could probably be seen from orbit. Every camera drone in the Empire was present to record the event. Representatives from all 17 conquered worlds sat in designated sections of the expanded arena. Above them all, on a platform that had been enlarged and decorated for the occasion, Thaxos held court on his bone throne. The early matches were designed to showcase Dominion superiority. Primitive rebels were fed to advanced war machines. Former military leaders from conquered worlds faced impossible odds against Dominion super soldiers. Each defeat was meant to demonstrate the futility of resistance, but the crowd was different this time. Dave could hear murmurs of discontent, see groups of aliens who were not cheering for their conquerors. His arena performances had planted seeds of doubt that were starting to grow. When Dave and his crew were brought out for the main event, the arena erupted in mixed reactions. Some sections cheered for the humans who had made them laugh. Others booed the primitives who had dared to mock their betters. The sound was chaotic, divided, nothing like the unified submission Thaxos expected from his subjects. The Warlord stood from his throne and spoke into the microphones that would carry his words across the Empire. Today, the galaxy will witness the final defeat of those who dare challenge Dominion authority. These humans thought they could make a mockery of power. Today they will learn that defiance leads only to death. Dave looked up at the alien tyrant and grinned. Nice speech, Thaxos. Very dramatic. Did you practice that in front of a mirror, or do you have a whole team of writers? The crowd's reaction was immediate and loud. Some laughed, others gasped. At the audacity, Thaxos gripped his throne so hard that cracks appeared in the bone armrests. Today, I will face you myself, human. You will die by my own claws! Dave nodded approvingly. There we go. Personal combat between the mighty warlord and a primitive human. This should be good television. As Thaxos descended from his platform, armor gleaming and weapons powered, Dave caught Tom's eye and nodded slightly. The engineer moved toward his hidden device, ready to activate it at the right moment. The final battle was about to begin, and with it, the fate of 17 worlds hung in the balance. The arena floor had been transformed for the final spectacle. Weapon racks rose from hidden panels, offering everything from ancient swords to energy cannons. The message was clear. Thaxos wanted this fight to look like a fair contest while ensuring his victory through superior equipment and physical advantages. Dave selected a simple metal staff, the kind of weapon that required skill rather than technology. Thaxos chose twin energy blades that hummed with deadly power and could cut through almost any material. The size difference between them was ridiculous. The Warlord stood 12 feet tall in his powered armor, while Dave looked like a child by comparison. Any last words, human? Thaxos asked, his voice amplified across the arena and broadcast to 17 worlds. Dave looked around at the massive crowd, the recording drones, the representatives from conquered planets who sat in silent fear. Then he looked directly into the main camera and smiled. Yeah, I've got some words. Hey, everyone watching this across the galaxy, look at this guy. Really look at him. He's 12 feet tall, covered in the best armor money can buy, holding weapons that could level a building, and he needs all of that to fight one unarmed human. What does that tell you about how confident he really is? The crowd murmured at this observation. Some had probably never considered that overwhelming force might indicate fear rather than strength. Thaxos roared and charged, his energy blades leaving trails of light as he swung them toward Dave's head. Dave rolled to the side, using his smaller size and human agility to avoid the attack. The energy blades struck the arena floor, leaving glowing scars in the metal. Wow, impressive, Dave called out as he scrambled away from another attack. Very flashy. But you know what I notice? You're swinging those things like you're chopping wood. Did anyone ever teach you proper sword technique? Or did you just assume that bigger weapons automatically make you better? The insult had its intended effect. Thaxos abandoned any pretense of skilled combat and began attacking with pure rage. His swings became wild and predictable, exactly what Dave was counting on. Each missed attack drew commentary from Dave that was picked up by the arena. Microphones. There's that famous Dominion precision. You conquered 17 star systems with technique like that? Did they all surrender from laughing too hard? In the stands, Dave could see that the crowd was no longer cheering for blood. They were watching something unprecedented. Their all-powerful ruler being made to look clumsy and ineffective by a primitive human with a metal stick. Tom had reached his hidden device and was waiting for the signal. Dr. Liu was ready with her quantum fungal spores. Vel was preparing to phase through the station's barriers to reach the communication array. Amy was watching the guard positions, ready to alert them if the plan was discovered. Dave continued his dance around Thaxos, always staying just out of reach of the energy blades. The Warlord was becoming more frustrated and sloppy with each missed attack. "You know what your real problem is, Thaxos?" Dave said, ducking under a swing that would have cut him in half. "You're so used to people being afraid of you that you never learned how to actually fight. You just intimidate people until they give up, but intimidation only works if people believe in it." Thaxos let out a roar of pure fury and raised both energy blades above his head for a devastating downward strike. It was exactly the opening Dave had been waiting for. As the Warlord committed to the attack, Dave gave the signal. Tom activated his device. The quantum fungal spores, invisible to the naked eye, began spreading through the arena's air recycling system. Within seconds, they were flowing into the orbital platform and the ships of the Dominion fleet. The effect was not immediate, but it was noticeable. The energy blades in Thaxos's hands began to flicker. The power armor that enhanced his strength started making warning sounds. Around the arena, weapon displays began shutting down as their quantum stabilizers failed. "What is happening?" Thaxos demanded, looking at his malfunctioning weapons in confusion. Dave grinned and pointed his metal staff at the Warlord. "That's the other thing about bullies. They depend on their toys to make them feel powerful. Take away the toys, and you find out what they really are underneath." The arena's main power grid failed, plunging the complex into emergency lighting. In the stands, panic began to spread as people realized something was seriously wrong. But Dave's voice carried clearly through the chaos, still picked up by the recording drones that were running on backup power. "Ladies and gentlemen across the galaxy, what you're seeing right now is the end of an empire built on fear. Your rulers aren't gods. They're not invincible. They're just bullies with fancy equipment, and we just broke their equipment." Vel had reached the communication array and was beginning his broadcast. The crystal being's message went out simultaneously to every world in the Dominion, carried on quantum frequencies that no government could block. The message was simple, but powerful. The recordings of every moment Dave had made Thaxos look foolish. Every time the Warlord had lost his composure, every instance where the mighty Dominion had been revealed as less than invincible. But more importantly, the broadcast included technical specifications for countering Dominion technology, locations of weapon stockpiles, and detailed information about the Empire's military weaknesses. On the arena floor, Thaxos had dropped his useless energy blades and was advancing on Dave with his bare claws. The Warlord was still dangerous, still physically powerful, but the psychological advantage had completely shifted. "You have doomed yourself, human," Thaxos snarled. "Even if my fleet is damaged, I will kill you with my own hands." "Maybe," Dave agreed, raising his metal staff. "But here's the thing about that. Even if you kill me, it's too late. 17 worlds are watching this broadcast right now. They're seeing their mighty Warlord reduced to fighting a human with his bare hands because all his fancy technology failed. How intimidating do you think you look right now?" The fight that followed was brutal, but brief. Thaxos was larger and stronger, but Dave was faster and more desperate. More importantly, Dave was fighting for the hope of billions of people, while Thaxos was fighting to preserve his wounded pride. When it ended, Thaxos lay unconscious on the arena floor, brought down by a human with a metal stick and a talent for psychological warfare. The crowd was in chaos, some cheering, others fleeing, all of them witness to the impossible. Dave stood over the fallen Warlord and looked up at the cameras that were still recording. "People of the galaxy," he said, breathing hard but smiling. "Your empire is finished, not because humans are stronger or smarter than anyone else, but because we reminded you of something you had forgotten. Tyrants only have power as long as people believe they're powerful. Stop believing, and they're just another bully who can be defeated." The quantum fungal spores had done their work throughout the Dominion fleet. ships that had dominated space, for decades were now drifting powerless, their crews struggling with technology that no longer functioned properly. The communication disruption meant that scattered fleet elements could not coordinate a response to the rebellions that were erupting on every conquered world. 6 months later, Dave was back to mining asteroids. The difference was that now he did it as part of the Free Galaxy Alliance, a coalition of the former Dominion worlds working together to prevent any future tyranny. His crew had stayed together, though they were all famous now. Dr. Liu was leading research into beneficial applications of quantum fungi. Tom was designing new ship systems that incorporated organic technology. Amy had become a pilot instructor, teaching young people from dozens of different species. Dave's mining ship received a transmission from Earth that made him laugh. "Captain Rodriguez, this is Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We've received reports of your activities in the Kepler sector. Command would like to offer you a promotion to Admiral and a position as head of our new diplomatic corps." Dave looked at his crew, then at the stars outside their ship's windows. Somewhere out there, Thaxos was working in a rehabilitation center, learning job skills and anger management. The former Warlord had actually turned out to be a decent mechanic once he stopped trying to intimidate people. "Tell Admiral Chen thanks for the offer," Dave replied to the transmission. "But we're happy where we are. Someone needs to keep an eye on our former enemies and make sure they're adjusting to civilian life. Besides, the asteroids out here are full of rare metals, and someone has to mine them." Amy, who was piloting their ship toward a particularly promising asteroid field, grinned at him. "Plus, we never did find out if he had a cape hidden somewhere. I'm still curious about that." Dave laughed and settled back in his command chair. "You know what? I am too. Maybe we should ask him next time we visit." Outside their ship, the stars shone with the light of free worlds, and somewhere in the distance, new civilizations were taking their first steps into a galaxy where bullies no longer ruled and laughter was still the best weapon against tyranny.